The Baltimore Ravens win the game of the year against the Cincinnati Bengals, 41-38, the final score. We talk about how they did it, Lamar Jackson's absolute masterclass, and so much more coming up on this Instant Reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, and we are here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here today and making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every day as well. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where we are reacting live to the game right after the fact. We can like and subscribe also in audio form, which will obviously be available in playback and audio once we are done with this unbelievable post game we're about to have today. Just so many things to talk about. And look, the Ravens win 41-38. I'm still catching my breath. I'm sure you're still catching your breath. I'm tripping over words. That game was everything and more, and I cannot be happier that the Ravens came out on top, because it was looking like a brutal loss pretty much right as that second half started and the end of the first half debacle. But man, the Ravens account used the word jubilation, and that is exactly what we are going to be today. Jubilant, happy, excited, because the Ravens pull out an almost improbable win. Today's post-game edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's get a vibe check going. I see in the chat we have a lot of excited people. I'm going to try to pull up the ones I see right now. Laura, appreciate you tuning in. Smash that like button as you come in, folks. Appreciate you, Laura. Felix, what a game. Edward, all good. Woo, what a game, man. I'll tell you. Absolutely incredible. Clay, game of the year. Nana Ray Vade, appreciate you for checking in as always. Man, scale of 1 to 10 right now for me, I'm feeling an 11. Tough game defensively for this team, but you know what? Lamar Jackson put the Superman cape on. He put that Superman cape on, as Lamar does, and Lamar did his thing in this game, man. Just absolutely bailed out the defense, and I'll tell you, the defense owes Lamar a Rolex or 5 for what he was able to do in that game, because he put the team on his back. He absolutely put the team on his back. The Bengals played scared at the end. The Ravens didn't. The Bengals are inept. I'm sorry. Maybe that's a little too harsh. The Bengals are inept. So many poor decisions in that game, but here's the difference. The Ravens actually took advantage of those mistakes. And the Bengals, while they took advantage of some of Baltimore's mistakes, they played themselves into a hole, and Baltimore saw that sliver of opportunity. Lamar saw that sliver of opportunity. And guess what? They come out with the win because of it. Baltimore moves to 3-2 on the year. Cincinnati, their season not over, but they're in a pretty deep hole right now. 1-4, that's tough. And I'll tell you, man, I just getting on these post-game lives and being able to experience these emotions with all of you is absolutely incredible. You know, we're all fans, and all, you know, me covering this team for the past 6 seasons, it's been incredible. This is probably some of the most fired up in a good way I've ever been for this team because of what we saw. So let's get straight into it. Again, I'm still stumbling over my words. I'm just trying to catch my breath. We're going live about 15-ish, 20-ish minutes after the game ends up being completed. We talked about Lamar Jackson putting that Superman cape on. Man, did he ever. 26 of 42 in this game. Obviously, it was a negative game flow for the Ravens for most of this contest, so Lamar was airing the ball out a little more here. 348 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had a couple of throws that sailed on him early. There were a couple of throws that he wished he had back. I'm not saying Lamar played perfect in this game, but when it mattered the most, when the lights were the brightest and when the Ravens needed him, Lamar Jackson stepped up to the plate. And you cannot say enough about this team, and particularly Lamar Jackson, and how he carried this group. Zay Flowers had an incredible game. He had a drop late in that game towards the end, but I thought he played great. 7 catches for 111 yards. Charlie Kohler stepping up, 3 for 64 and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, 4 for 58 and a score. Mark Andrews got involved in the offense, 4 for 55. Welcome back. Let's give a round of applause to Mark Andrews. They likely caught 2 touchdowns, including the play of Lamar Jackson's career. There are a lot of plays that you can say, oh, yeah, well, that might be the play of Lamar's career, or maybe that's the play of Lamar's career. I'll tell you what. This game, that play encapsulates Lamar Jackson as a guy that gets so much hate and so much flack, especially when it comes to his arm, which is so unbased and just so far off base. And these are the types of games that prove to you over and over again that Lamar Jackson is that dude and reminds you why he's a 2-time MVP. He's in the MVP race. I mean, this game catapults him far, far, far into the MVP conversation this season. Josh Allen with another stinker. Mahomes hasn't played great this season. I mean, look, you can talk about a bunch of different players and early season MVPs, right? I mean, we're even throwing Sam Darnold in those talks right now, Baker Mayfield in those talks right now. But, man, I'll tell you, I'm so proud of Lamar. I'm so proud for this team for not giving up. And it was a defensive disaster class. For as bad as the Ravens defense was in this game, and trust me, we're going to talk about it, the Cincinnati defense was worse. The Cincinnati defense is awful. It's terrible. It's no good, very bad, whatever you want to say. We'll start off with a former Raven on that defensive side of the ball. Geno Stone was awful. Geno Stone had a terrible game, and he's one of the reasons, honestly, Cincinnati lost this game. So addition by subtraction for this Ravens team, Geno's been bad in Cincinnati all season. And I'm sure if I were to scroll through social media right now, there'd be a bunch more Bengals fans saying to bring him back to Baltimore and get him out of Cincinnati. And Clay, yep, I see you, man. Geno got hurdled, literally got nothing, maybe like a clip of the foot, but nothing on Lamar on that play. Big miscommunications from Geno. He bit on play fakes, wasn't tackling well. Like it was all over the place. But again, that's what good teams do, and that's what good quarterbacks do. Right? It's being able to take advantage of a poor defense. I thought Sam Hubbard played pretty well for the majority of the game, although on that play of the year, Lamar's player of his career, Lamar Jackson ended up stiff-arming. That's what made that whole play, what I'm talking about, obviously the fumbled snap, Lamar picks it up, stiff-arms Sam Hubbard like 3 times, running out of bounds, chucks it up to Isaiah Likely. Man, just Houdini. I wanted the call so badly to be another Houdini moment or something along those lines. But, man, let me tell you, it is absolutely unreal what we saw today. The Superman cape came on for Lamar Jackson, and he willed this team to a win despite some very, very poor secondary play. But in the second segment, we'll talk about that. But just to wrap up this offensive part, the Ravens didn't really use Derrick Henry a ton. Derrick Henry struggled for the majority of this game. 15 carries, 92 yards, and a score. A lot of that obviously was the 51-yard run at the end of the game. This couldn't have set up more perfectly for Baltimore in overtime. Obviously, I'm not talking about the fumble and everything. Cincinnati lost that game. Lamar Jackson won the game more than the Ravens won the game. Cincinnati lost the game more than the Ravens won the game. It was a joint effort between Lamar Jackson and the disaster class we saw from Zach Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals defense in this game. Because the Bengals, when they get the ball back, after Lamar fumbles that snap, it was, clock ticking down, 3, 2, 1. Lamar botches the catch on a snap. The Bengals run 3 straight times. They played scared. The Bengals played scared. They thought that after that Joe Burrow interception, they thought that, disaster would be another turnover in this situation. The Bengals played scared, and obviously the botched hold on the field goal. Zach Taylor ices his own kicker. Just absolutely unreal stuff. Unreal stuff. And the Ravens, they continue to fight and fight and fight and take advantage of those mistakes. And Baltimore comes out on top. I mean, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. This team, Lamar Jackson, and I think it's very fitting that Kevin Harlan was on the call for this game. Just a beautiful masterclass of play calling by Kevin Harlan. And again, it was every time, like Lamar Jackson, he's caught in the backfield for a loss. He finds a way to get 5 yards. The ball gets botched and he fumbles the snap and everything and, picks it back up, runs around and throws a touchdown. That's the greatness of Lamar Jackson. That is what Lamar Jackson brings to the table time and time again. And in a game like this, for the entirety of this game, it was just like, okay, Lamar does something, and okay, Bengals go back, and they score. And then, okay, Lamar does something. Oh, Bengals, they score again. And Lamar was doing everything he could. Again, he wasn't perfect, but he was doing everything he could to try to win them this game. And finally, Joe Burrow throws an interception to Marlon Humphrey. The Ravens were able to go down the field and kick a field goal. Justin Tucker, two clutch kicks from Justin Tucker in this ball game. But, okay, I'll say this game was Lamarvelous. It was a Lamarvelous performance, and I can't get over it for this ball club. I thought the offensive line kind of regressed a little bit in this game. Definitely. Late in the game, they held up, but it was a lot of Lamar Houdini ball in this one. I thought that, what wasn't great. And actually, this is true, Anthony. I'm very curious to see this post-game Instagram live victory here from Marlon Humphrey heading back from Cincinnati. Is Lamar going to make an appearance? We're going to see if he comes on camera for that one. I think Lamar's probably in a bit of a better mood in this game, considering they came back from behind and won the game. Super gritty win. And Lamar played really well for the entirety of the game. But I'll tell you, this team continues to pull victories out of who knows where. Like, the Ravens usually would have no shot in a game like this because it's just the defense getting torched over and over again. And it's like blow for blow. Lamar's doing everything, and the defense couldn't do everything. But, man, he did it. Lamar Jackson pulled the Ravens into his realm and ended up delivering them a victory. So you see this? Yep. Lamar on the offense could have folded, but Lamar's a guy that doesn't give up. He's a competitor. He wants to win these football games, and this team never quit. The offense never quit. You could see Lamar on the sideline being locked in. Obviously, he was upset at the couple mishaps that he had, but the Bengals had their own. And so when the Bengals decided to be the Bengals, and by that I mean make mistakes, the Ravens took advantage of that. The Bengals took advantage of some Ravens mistakes, and we'll talk about that in the second part of the show, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But this game is all about Lamar Jackson. I can't give enough flowers to Lamar for what he was able to do. And boy, do we have a lot more to dive into on this instant reaction live edition of the show. So coming up, we'll flip over, talk about the defensive side of the ball, some of the coaching from John Harbaugh, because although it was a win, John Harbaugh is not excused from all criticism in this game, although, hey, man, his team ended up coming out with a win. So we'll talk about the John Harbaugh question in the second part of the show, but more so defense. Stay tuned. Plenty to dive into on this post-game instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks has so many good things to offer. I love going on PrizePicks, looking at everything that they have up. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Tacos Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Plus, PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which players aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So, if you had more on Zay Flowers receiving yards, more on Lamar Jackson passing yards, probably living large on PrizePicks. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. We're back, our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher here with you after the Ravens win the game of the year against the Cincinnati Bengals. Man, the ups and downs of this game were unlike any other. We know the heart is never still when watching this Baltimore Ravens team, but I can't even imagine what this game would have been like if the Ravens had lost it, especially, they come back and then they don't, and then they come back and then they don't. And then it just, it feels like, they're almost bringing you in just to take you back out again and bring you back just to blow the game. But they ended up coming out on top. And actually, Derrick Henry showing love to Lamar Jackson after the game. He said, he a GOAT, best in the league. Stop playing with him, man. Like, that's the support you love to see from a guy that obviously just got here. And, I mean, I'm sure the players are in belief, but Lamar's a winner, man. Lamar's a winner. And I can't believe that, this team was able to rally around him. I mean, I can't believe they were able to rally around him. Just the way that it happened, I am still at a loss for words. So again, thank you for tuning into this post-game edition of the show. We go live after every single Ravens game. We have regularly scheduled content Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time here on Locked On Ravens. So be sure to like and subscribe in video form on YouTube, plus follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. JJ, I hear you, man. Blatant face mask missed. Yeah, so the refs had some questionable calls on both teams, not just the Ravens. The Bengals also had some ones that could have gone their way. But that blatant face mask, was on a crucial drive in the game. The ref was right there. The helmet obviously spins. You can't miss calls like that. But the Ravens, again, were able to overcome. Didn't let it deter them. Justin Tucker is the 56-yarder. And now we are sitting here talking about how excited we are that this Ravens team, and I said it, I'll say it again. If you listen to our bonus episodes over the weekend, I tried to make this point clear. For this team, when they fell to 0-2, I said, win 2 of your next 3 games, and you'll be good. And obviously the Ravens won both in week 3 and in week 4. But now they have an opportunity in week 5. It's a division rival, first AFC North game of the season. Game's not going your way. Everybody's talking about, this Ravens team has to be up, right? They have to be able to run the ball, and, they can't play from behind, right? It's all about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the ball, and this can be a thing. Lamar Jackson won that game with his arm today, first of all, which, again, is not new to anybody here, not new to any Ravens fans. We've known that. Other people maybe are a little slower in coming around to that fact, but Lamar can do that. And I find it wildly disrespectful that we have to come on here and talk about this game, and there are still, going to be people who will say, just the Bengals were bad and the Ravens weren't good. No, Lamar Jackson put on an MVP performance in this game, and that's why I cannot say enough about Lamar, because even in moments like that, JJ, where the face mask was missed, or even in moments where there were bad things that happened, the snap, whatever, the Ravens took advantage of the Bengals' mistakes, and that's exactly why we are here today. Now, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. We'll get back to Lamar in a couple of minutes. Man, I'm moving at a million miles a minute right now, and I'm sure everybody who watched and listened to that game, who is now tuning in right now or watching after the fact, heart is still pumping. Heart is still pumping for me. Defensively, it was a bad game for the Ravens. Bad game. They came up in some moments when they needed to, particularly Marlon Humphrey. Shout out to Marlon for the interception. He's playing great ball this year. But, we got to call it like it is here. The Ravens offense was good and better than Cincinnati's at the end of the day, but that doesn't mean that the Ravens defense stepped up and played great. The Ravens defense was bad today, particularly in the secondary, right? That's what happened. They stood up when the game was on the line, and we saw a couple of really good possessions towards the end of the game. But 442 passing yards given up to the Bengals in this one. You want to talk about just actual yards, Joe Burrow, credited for 392. Once sacks are taken into the equation, 5 touchdowns for Joe Burrow in this game. Miscommunications, bad angles, some poor play calls from Zach Orr, everything in this game. And obviously the Ravens have been a good run defense team, and they held that today. Only 3.1 yards per carry on the ground for Cincinnati. They did break off some 10-plus yard plays on the ground, but for the most part, they held the Bengals' run offense in check. And I know, and I see it right here. Doom says it. Marcus Williams, $70 million. Marcus has been bad this season. He's been really bad. And when you couple that with his lack of availability over the first 2 years of his career, now you have him playing poorly this season. I don't know I don't know exactly what he's graded out as, but we know it's been bad. We know it's been bad for Marcus this season. And especially on that Jamar Chase big, long touchdown catch, where obviously the Bengals have blockers out in front. Marcus just stuck in quicksand on that play. Stuck in quicksand. So I can't. I don't know. Marcus is a liability for them right now. And with his price tag, with his poor play, there is an expectation when you sign a big contract like that to play well. And Marcus is an awesome dude. Marcus is a great dude. But when it comes to his on-field play this season, we have to be real about it. And we have to say that this can't cut it. This can't continue to cut it for Marcus Williams. Brandon Stevens had a bit of a rough go of it as well. Had a good pass breakup on a T. Higgins long catch, but, they were picking on Brandon Stevens a little bit in this game. And, tough for him. But the entire secondary needs to play better. Roquan had a couple of good plays in this game, but also had a couple of bad ones. So I can't emphasize this enough to where this is unsustainable. All right. This win was won in an unsustainable fashion. Not in the way that the Ravens can't play from behind and win. Lamar can't win it with his arm. That's not what I'm saying. So please don't take it that way. What I'm saying is you cannot expect Lamar Jackson to bring you up from the depths every single week. You cannot put that expectation on him because that's not fair. As a defense, you have to do your job. 41 points, even if the Bengals scored, let's say 27, right? Kind of an okay day from the defense. 41 points is enough to win you a ball game. And obviously it was in this day and age, in this game. But you have to be able as a defense to help Lamar out. All right. You can't put him in that situation again. It's something that can't be. So I was disappointed by the defense. When we're talking about guys that played well, obviously I thought Marlon played well. Roquan had 14 tackles. Again, not a bad day from Roquan, not a great day from Roquan. I thought Trenton Simpson popped on a couple of plays. Nnamdi Madubuike had a huge sack on Joe Burrow late in this game. Travis Jones eating people up in the run game. So again, wasn't a awful performance by everybody, but you also look at the third downs. The Ravens were awesome on third down, going 10 of 15. They were better than Cincinnati, but Cincinnati went 8 of 14 on third down. That's over 50%. Seemed like the Bengals just wanted to get to third down to convert. So third down defense by both teams was pretty poor on all fronts. And I'm trying to peruse through Twitter right now just to see if I'm missing anything in the post-game quotes department. Derrick Henry saying that is third MVP level stuff from Lamar Jackson right there in his game. Again, 348 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 55 rushing yards from Lamar. I keep trying to talk about the defense, but it all keeps going back to number 8, man. All goes down to number 8. So I cannot believe what we saw in this game. And coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into just what comes next for this Ravens team. I know we didn't get to John Harbaugh in the second part of the show, so we will dive into it in the final part of the show. So stay tuned for all that we have coming up here on this Instant Reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. Do not go anywhere. First, this live edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're started with $200 bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So for this Ravens and Bengals game, man, if you had the Ravens winning, they opened up as 2.5-point favorites. They won by 3. Man, that line there. And then you also have, you picked over on the Zay Flowers receiving yards, probably living large over on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. We are back. Locked On Ravens, final segment. Kevin Oestreicher celebrating with you here after the Ravens win the game of the year. I don't know if there's going to be a game that tops that in the NFL this season. We're in week 5, and I'm already putting the Derrick Henry crown on, all right? We're putting the crown on that game. 41-38, the Ravens win in overtime. It was looking great for the Ravens, then it wasn't. Then it was looking awesome for the Ravens. Then it was looking terrible for the Ravens. Then it was looking great again. Then it was just that roller coaster ride of emotions. And I'm curious to actually see ESPN does a graph on win probability and win percentage in that game for every game. And I'm curious to see how fluctuating this game was for the Ravens and the Bengals. But be sure to tune in to Locked On Ravens. Every single weekday, we do Monday and Friday edition episodes, or Monday through Friday, edition episodes. We're on episode coming up on tomorrow, 1,351 consecutively. Plus, we go live after every single Ravens game. Piece of big news. We do game day episodes to get you ready for game time. Keys to victory. So much content here on Locked On Ravens. Appreciate all of the support. We're almost to 9,000 subscribers, and I can't say enough about the communities that we've built up here on Locked On Ravens. So appreciate everybody. Let's talk about John Harbaugh for a little bit. Brutal end of first half management. I can't sit here and not talk about that. It was bad. And I honestly, there was some really bad coaching moments in this game on both sides. So look, for the Ravens at the end of the first half, some tough plays, but they pick up some chunk. And then John Harbaugh decides not to call a timeout and run a play. And then they pick up another, and then it's third down. and John Harbaugh decides to call a timeout for the Bengals. The Bengals weren't going to go. The Bengals, again, the Bengals were scared. The entire game, the Bengals were scared. All right, we can talk about the offense. We can talk about whatever. The Bengals were playing scared the entire game, which proves my point because at the end of the first half, the Bengals wanted to go to halftime. They didn't call a timeout. They didn't want to try to get the ball back and score. John Harbaugh called that timeout. The Ravens called that timeout. And obviously they don't convert. They punt the ball away, and Cincinnati goes down the field and scores 8 points. John Harbaugh and the Ravens gifted the Bengals 8 points. Defense, again, poor coverage, miscommunication. You can't do that. You cannot help the other team. Take the game to halftime. I get that you want to save clock and maybe you convert and you can roll there, but you help the Bengals in that situation. You help the Bengals in that situation. So just a really tough sequence from John Harbaugh. Luckily, it did not end up costing them the game, but I don't know, man. And this is an interesting, Antonio, I'm glad you brought this up. In the chat, if you're live with us, or in the comments, if you're after the fact, you can message me on Twitter if you're listening in audio form. How did you feel about that tight end sneak with Charlie Kolar from his own, I think it was, 24-yard line, I think it was, early in the game? 24-yard line, tight end sneak. Did you agree with that decision? Did you agree with John Harbaugh going for it there? Risky. But honestly, that's just kind of the John Harbaugh experience, right? Like, I honestly was, even before they got back out there on offense and kept the offense on the field, I was like, I can totally see John Harbaugh going for this in some crazy way. That's just what it is. It's John Harbaugh's unpredictable. Sometimes it's good. Other times it's not so good. Usually when we talk about John Harbaugh craziness, it's not good. But honestly, the risk reward there is, honestly, the game happened so quickly and there's so much that went on that I don't remember even what happened. But I'm honestly okay with it. I'll give John Harbaugh a pass for that one. I'm honestly fine with Harbaugh going for that. They honestly trusted their play call, and I get it, right? I get it. And Sedarian, man, appreciate you tuning in. I assume you're talking about Lamar's stiff arm. He had hurdles, he had stiff arms, he was moving all around the field, dicing up this Bengals defense. Again, for as bad as the Ravens defense was in this game, the Bengals defense was so much worse. So much worse. And I talked about it. If you tuned into our game day episode earlier this morning, I had said the Bengals defense doesn't have star power. They don't. Nobody on that defense scares me outside of Trey Hendrickson, who honestly, I'm pulling up Trey's stats right now, but he wasn't really a factor in this game, if I remember correctly. I don't remember hearing his name called that much. Trey Hendrickson, 3 total tackles on the day, no sacks. I mean, Trey wasn't that great. But Cam Taylor-Britt had a couple of good pass deflections, also was out of place on a couple as well. I mean, those are the guys that scare you. Logan Wilson is fine, and I know that he kind of has a bad rep in Baltimore after what's happened over the past couple of years with him. But this Bengals defense is atrocious, and the offense did exactly what they were supposed to do. You expect the Bengals offense with Jamar and T. Higgins and those guys to score more points, but giving up 38 and having the miscommunications and breakdowns that you did, I mean, that's not acceptable, right? You can't do that. So you gift the Bengals 3 points at halftime. The Bengals come out, and it's just things where, like, you couldn't capitalize on some opportunities, but at the end of the day, the Ravens come out with a win, and that's huge. And Clifton speak on the Isaiah Likely throw and catch. Yeah, I mean, it's Houdini level stuff. I wanted so badly Kevin Harlan to say another Houdini moment. So, he bobbles the snap, picks it up, stiff arms Sam Hubbard like 3 times, puts him on the ground, and then delivers, rolls out. Nothing's there. To me, when Lamar throws that ball on the run, I'm just like, okay, someone found their way open, because that's the beauty of this. Defensively, it's so hard to cover for more than 3, 4, 5 seconds, right? Like, those are times where, as a defense, with every second that goes by, it is harder and harder to cover. So when Lamar was able to go out there and just, kind of mosey around and escape defenders, that gives guys more time to work back to the ball, to get open, to shake somebody. That's what happens. That's why Lamar is such a threat. Because even when you think you have him dead to rights, you think he's done. You think he's about to throw an incompletion or a poor throw. Lamar finds a way to get out of it, either use his legs to his advantage or use his arm to his advantage as well. So, I mean, look, Jamar Chase went off on this team. 10 receptions, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins balled out, 9 for 83 and 2 touchdowns. But those were the two guys, right? Those were the two that were able to get going. And then nobody else really. I mean, Yoshivas had a big play. Gesicki had a big play. But, man, Ryan says it perfectly. He is Houdini. So, an incredible game for this Baltimore Ravens team. Again, they looked down and out. You know, the defense couldn't stop anything. Couldn't stop a nosebleed. And then they come out, have a couple of good stands at the end. Marlon with a clutch interception. Bengals were beating them down on slants the entire game. And Marlon jumps it. Maybe a little contact, but hey, guess what? It was within 5 yards, so they're not going to call it. And comes up with the interception. Justin Tucker, ice in the veins. I know a lot of Ravens fans are worried about Tucker, but hey, absolutely just cinema level stuff with Tucker coming out there after all the struggles and drilling that 56-yarder field goal for the win after the Derrick Henry big run. Man, gritty win. Gritty win. They didn't play well in multiple different phases, but Lamar Jackson put the team on his back, and he carried that team to a win. Again, I'll read the stat line one more time because it's that impressive. Man, 26-42, 348, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, plus 12 carries for 55 yards. He is one of the best, if not the best, dual threat quarterback to play ever in NFL history. And I just, here we go. Look at this. Grayson Adam, I love this. Derrick Henry, the closer. Derrick Henry, the closer. Because you know what? They didn't use him late in the game. So when overtime comes, it's just kind of neutral-ish game script. You're able to just run that ball. A fresh-legged Derrick Henry late in the game, that is a scary, scary situation. So, man, I'll tell you. Phil, I'm with you. Lamar had a signature win, no doubt about that. When Lamar is done, when Lamar hangs it up, he has a lot of games and a lot of moments that we'll look back on. But I know people understand it, but I want to say it again. We're going to look back on this game as one of the all-time moments of Lamar Jackson's career. One of the all-time moments. A team that looks down and out, a defense that couldn't stop anything. Lamar Jackson kept them within striking distance. Shout out to Rashad Bateman, man. I thought Bateman had a heck of a game. I talked about it, 4 for 58 in a score, timely catches, big plays, getting off the line. I mean, all of that stuff. Got to give a shout out to Rashad Bateman. I know he's dealt with a lot over the course of his career, injuries, not being on the same page as Lamar. He's not putting up these huge stat lines, but a lot of his plays this season have come in really, really clutch moments. Zay was cooking these corners, man, one-on-one. Obviously, prayers to Dax Hill. I don't know the exact extent of his injury yet. I'm actually going to look it up as I'm talking to everybody here. Dax Hill, apparently the diagnosis is likely season-ending knee injury. So Zay Flowers ran a heck of a route. And again, prayers to Dax and hoping for a speedy recovery on that. But that's just who Zay is, man. Chris Sprouts. And Joe, man, 100%. Happy for Tucker to be back. They need him. Greatest kicker of all time. I was never buying the Tucker dip. I get it's been rough for him over the course of, this year. But when the Ravens needed Justin Tucker most on a kick that was closer to 60 yards than 50, Justin Tucker came out there and nailed it, ice in his veins. And, Marlon, this is a good point. This is going to preserve Lamar. It's going to make sure Lamar is fresh down the stretch, fresh into the playoffs. And it's one point where you can run Derrick Henry. Not that they ran him a ton today, obviously, based off of the game flow. But, it used to be with Gus and JK, two good running backs for Baltimore. They played tons of great football for the Ravens. But Derrick Henry, it's just different. It's just different. So my heart's still pumping, the heart's still pounding. I can't believe it. This has been an incredible post-game live edition of the show. I mean, the community, again, that tunes in for these and tunes into our regular episodes, however, wherever, whenever you tune into the show, really, really, really appreciate it. And I'm glad we could all celebrate together today. The Ravens move to 3-2, 41-38 overtime, gritty win. Lamar Jackson puts Superman cape on, catapults himself into the front of the MVP conversation, in my opinion. And I cannot wait for next week. Ravens Commanders, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, heck of a game on tap. But for now, the Ravens escape Cincinnati and come out with a huge win on the back of Lamar Jackson. So that's all I have for you here today on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in to the show today. We're not going anywhere, though. We're going to be back here tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern time, breaking down everything from this game, doing more in-depth dives, looking at the stats a little bit more. So be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow along in audio form for 5 days a week plus more daily Ravens coverage as always. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy it after a Ravens victory and go celebrate a little more. We'll be back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.